Welcome back to the Daily Lift. In Matthew chapter 26, we have the account of Jesus instituting the Lord's Supper after the Passover and going off into the garden to pray. And as he leaves the eight and goes off a little ways with Peter, James, and John, he asks them to wait. And he is going to go and pray. At this time, Jesus, knowing what is about to befall him, he is in agony. This is probably the worst anxiety attack that anybody could ever experience. And so what does he do? He goes to the Lord. And here he prays, Lord, if there's any way this can be done other than this, please let it be. But nevertheless, if your will, not mine. And he goes back and he finds his three friends, his disciples that he's been with for these 3 years, asleep. And he wakes them up and he says, what? Could you not have waited and watched for an hour? Indeed, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And this got me thinking about that idea, because so often we can fool ourselves in saying, oh, look at those children of Israel. How could they have been such grumblers and complainers? If I was there, I would not have been amongst those grumblers and complainers, especially seeing all that God had done firsthand. Or these individuals that put Jesus to death, that mob that allowed Jesus to be betrayed and crucified. How could they do these things, seeing who Jesus was? And it's easy to say these things on that side. But when we really get into it, we don't know how it's going to go down until we're actually into that situation. Look at Peter. Just moments, hours before this, Jesus is telling them how they were going to be forsaking him, and that the shepherd will be struck and the sheep will scatter. And Jesus said, or Peter says, I will never forsake you. I will not do that, Lord. And Jesus says, before the rooster crows, you'll deny me 3 times. And Peter denies this. He says, not so, Lord. Even if I have to die with you, I'll never forsake you. And the others said the same thing. And what happened? We see exactly what Jesus said was going to happen, did happen. And we see that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Why? Why is this the case? Why is our flesh so weak? And what, as Christians, can we do about it? And I believe that there are ways that we can mature in our faith to strengthen the flesh so that these temptations can't befall us as easily. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to acknowledge its limitations. We are weak in these bodies. These bodies have desires. These bodies have limitations, and they have pain. All of these things can distract us and detract from what we're supposed to be doing. And so acknowledging those limitations can help us to make sure that we're not fooling ourselves into being stronger than we actually are. The next thing, as Jesus says here to his disciples, watch and pray so that you do not enter into temptation. This is so important, that we go to God and that we are prayerful. And next, we need to resist the devil. James 4:7 tells us to submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And when we submit to God, when we resist the devil, he cannot get a foothold. Only when we let him in is the only way that he can get that foothold. And then if we go on to James 4:8, he says to draw near to God, and God will draw near to you. So to strengthen our flesh, we need to make sure that we are maturing our faith. This is the way that we resist the temptation, because I guarantee you that the Peter, after he was seasoned, after he went through all of the trials, before he was going to be martyred, before he was going to be executed, I guarantee you that Peter would not have fallen asleep when the Lord asked him to watch. So make sure that you are strengthening your faith, maturing the faith so that you can strengthen that flesh, and watch out for its limitations. Make sure that you're watchful and you're prayerful. And as always, go lift somebody up.